Hey, I still can't wrap my head around it. 2 weeks ago, my only son stood in the driveway of the house I helped buy and pay for, looked me straight in the eyes, and told me I had 30 minutes to pack my things before he changed the locks. I'm 58 years old. I gave up my own life so he could have a stable home after his father walked out on us. And now he was the one walking me out. My name is Elaine. If you've ever been the parent who held everything together while the rest of the family fell apart, or if you've ever watched your child turn against you for reasons you never saw coming, I need you to stay with me. This isn't a dramatic TV story. This is what actually happened to me. And it started 20 years ago with a phone call I wish I could forget. Let me take you back so you can see how we got here. It was a Tuesday afternoon in 2005. I was 38, married to Richard for 16 years, and working part-time as a bookkeeper while raising our 10-year-old son, Tyler. Richard was a regional sales manager, always traveling, always on his phone. That day, the phone rang while I was folding laundry. It was his secretary, Lisa. Her voice was shaking. "Elaine, I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. Richard and we've been seeing each other for almost a year. He wants a divorce. He's already packed a bag and he's on his way to my apartment." I remember the exact sound the receiver made when it slipped from my hand and hit the kitchen tile. I stood there staring at the pile of Tyler's little t-shirts, trying to breathe. When Richard finally came home that night, he didn't even try to deny it. He just said he was tired of pretending, that Lisa made him feel alive again, and that he needed to be happy. He moved out the next weekend. Tyler was only 10. He didn't understand why his dad suddenly stopped coming home for dinner. I told him the simple version, that sometimes grown-ups stop loving each other, but I never told him the rest. I didn't want him to grow up hating his father. Instead, I became both parents. I worked full-time, picked up every overtime shift, and made sure Tyler never missed a baseball game or a school play. I sold the nicer car, skipped vacations, and ate a lot of peanut butter sandwiches so he could have new cleats and braces. Richard paid child support when he remembered, but it wasn't enough. So I took out a second mortgage on the house we'd bought together, the 4-bedroom colonial with the big backyard Tyler loved. I told myself it was temporary. I would keep the house so Tyler would have the same bedroom, the same friends, the same sense of home. I paid every single payment myself for the next 18 years. Tyler grew up fast. By the time he graduated high school, he was angry at the world, at his absent dad, and sometimes, I think, at me for not fighting harder to keep our family together. He went to community college, then got a decent job in logistics. At 26, he met his wife, Brooke. She was sweet at first, quiet, hardworking, a dental hygienist. They got married in a small ceremony I paid for because Richard couldn't make it. 2 years later, they had my granddaughter, Sophie. That's when everything shifted again. Brooke had complications after the birth and couldn't go back to work right away. Tyler asked if they could move into the house with me so they could save money and I could help with the baby. I said yes without hesitation. I loved having them there. I loved waking up to Sophie's little cries and being the one who could rock her back to sleep while Brooke rested. I cooked dinner every night, did the laundry, drove Sophie to every doctor appointment, and even picked up Tyler's dry cleaning so he could focus on work. I told myself this was my second chance, to be the stable parent I always tried to be. For the first 3 years, it felt like we were a team. Tyler would come home tired but grateful. He'd hug me and say, "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you." And Brooke would thank me for watching Sophie so she could slowly go back to part-time work. I paid the full mortgage every month, the property taxes, the utilities, everything. I never asked them for rent. I just wanted them to have the stability I fought so hard to keep. But little things started to change around the time Sophie turned 3. Tyler began coming home later. He'd say he had extra projects at work, but his mood was shorter with me. Brooke started making comments about how I did things the old way with the baby, how maybe I was spoiling Sophie or stepping on her toes as a mother. I brushed it off. I figured every new mom feels that way sometimes. Then, about 6 months ago, Tyler sat me down in the kitchen after Brooke had gone to bed. He looked uncomfortable. "Mom, we've been talking. Now that Brooke is working more and Sophie's in preschool, we think it's time we take over the house. Financially. You've done so much, but we need to start building equity for Sophie's future." I was stunned. I said, "Tyler, this house is still in my name. I've paid for it all these years. I'm happy to keep helping, but—" He cut me off. "Dad told me the whole story last month. He said you were impossible to live with, that you drove him away with your constant nagging and never let him be happy. He said he felt trapped. And honestly, looking back, I can see it. You've always been so controlling, even now, running the house like it's still just yours." My chest tightened. Richard had fed him a story I never told. The version where I was the cold, demanding wife, and he was the victim who finally found love with Lisa. He never heard my side. The late nights I cried alone, the way Richard's affair started long before he admitted it, the way I shielded Tyler from every ugly detail so he could still love his father. I tried to explain, calmly. "Tyler, your father left us for his secretary. I didn't drive him away. I stayed and fought for you. I paid for this house so you would never have to move." But he wasn't listening. His face was hard, the same stubborn look he had as a teenager. "Brooke feels the same way. She says you've been undermining her since Sophie was born. We need space. We're adults now." I felt the floor shift under me, but I nodded. "Okay, if you want me to move to the guest room or something while we figure out the finances." "No," he said quietly. "We want you to move out. We'll refinance the house in our name. You can keep whatever equity is left after we pay you back for the years you covered, but it's time." I didn't argue that night. I went downstairs to the finished basement I'd been living in and sat on the edge of my bed for hours, staring at the same walls I'd painted when Tyler was a little boy. I kept thinking about all the nights I worked double shifts so the lights would stay on, all the birthdays I celebrated alone after Richard left, all the times I told myself if I just kept the house, kept the family together somehow, Tyler would never feel the pain I felt. Last week, the tension finally snapped. Sophie had a fever and Brooke was working a late shift. I gave Sophie medicine, read her 3 stories, and stayed up until she fell asleep. When Brooke came home, she looked exhausted. Instead of thanking me, she said, "Elaine, I wish you'd stop treating her like she's your child. She has parents." Tyler overheard. That was the moment he exploded. He came downstairs the next morning while I was making coffee and said, "Mom, we've decided. You need to be out by the weekend. I already called a locksmith. I'm changing the locks on Monday." I stood there with the coffee mug in my hands, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. "Tyler, this is my house. I paid the mortgage for 20 years. I raised you here." His voice was flat. "It's our house now. Dad's been helping us with the refinance paperwork. He says it's only fair after everything you put him through. You can stay with Aunt Carol or figure something out, but we can't keep doing this." I begged him. I reminded him of every late-night fever, every school play, every time I chose him over my own happiness. He just shook his head and walked upstairs. That afternoon, I started packing. Slowly, hoping he would change his mind. I folded the tiny baby clothes I'd kept from when Tyler was small. I looked at the photos on the wall. Me and Tyler at his kindergarten graduation, just the 2 of us, smiling like we could handle anything. Yesterday morning, I carried the last box to my car. Tyler was standing on the porch with his arms crossed.
Brooke was inside, holding Sophie, watching through the window. It was raining, the same cold spring rain that always makes everything feel heavier. 30 minutes, Mom, he said. I'm sorry it had to be this way. I loaded the last suitcase. As I closed the trunk, I heard my phone buzz on the passenger seat. It was a text from an unknown number. The message was simple. Hello, Elaine. It's Lisa, Richard's wife. I've been meaning to reach out for years. There's something about your son you need to know before he cuts you out completely. Call me when you're alone. It's about the money he's been getting from his father and why he's really blaming you. My hands started shaking so hard I dropped the keys in the wet driveway. I looked back at the house I paid for with every overtime hour and every sacrifice, and realized the real story wasn't the one my son had been told. It was the one still hidden.
And whatever Lisa was about to tell me was going to change everything I thought I knew about the man who just threw me away. I stood there in the rain, keys dripping onto the driveway, staring at that text like it was written in a language I didn't speak. Lisa, after 20 years, the woman who had called me that Tuesday afternoon to blow up my entire life, was now offering me answers. My thumb hovered over the call button for what felt like forever. Part of me wanted to delete the message and drive away with whatever dignity I had left. The other part, the part that had spent 2 decades wondering why my son suddenly saw me as the enemy, couldn't let it go. I got in the car, started the engine so the heat would cut through the chill, and hit call before I could talk myself out of it. It rang twice. Elaine? Her voice was softer than I remembered, older, tired. Yes, I said, my own voice barely above a whisper. You texted me. There was a long pause. I could hear traffic in the background, like she was sitting in a parking lot somewhere. I know this is out of nowhere. I've thought about reaching out 100 times. Richard, he's been in Tyler's life more than you know, for years. And the way Tyler's treating you right now, it's not coming from nowhere. It's coming from him. My stomach twisted. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. What do you mean? She sighed. Can we meet? Not at your house, obviously. There's a coffee shop off Route 22, the one near the old mall. 20 minutes? I didn't even hesitate. I'll be there. The drive felt endless. Every red light gave me too much time to think about the last 20 years. How I'd never once badmouthed Richard in front of Tyler. How I'd smiled through every awkward holiday when Richard showed up with Lisa on his arm like they were the happy ending. How I'd told Tyler his father loved him, even when the child support checks stopped coming for 6 months at a time. I'd carried all of it alone so my son wouldn't have to choose sides. And now it felt like he'd chosen the wrong one anyway. The coffee shop was half empty. Lisa was already in a back booth, hair grayer than I expected, wearing a simple sweater. She looked normal, not the homewrecker I'd built up in my head all these years. When I sat down, she pushed a coffee toward me like we were old friends. I'm sorry, she said first, for everything. I was young and stupid, and I thought love was supposed to feel that exciting. I didn't think about you, or Tyler, not really. I didn't want her apology. I wanted answers. Just tell me what's going on with my son. She took a breath. Richard started calling Tyler when he was about 14. At first, it was just, hey buddy, how's school? Then it turned into weekends at our house. Tyler never told you the full extent, did he? Richard made it sound like you were the reason he left, that you were cold, controlling, that you made him miserable for years before he met me. He told Tyler you stayed in the marriage for the money, for the house, that the divorce was your fault. My eyes stung. I never told Tyler any of that. I wanted him to have a father. I know, Lisa said quietly, but Richard rewrote the story, and when Tyler got older, Richard started giving him money, not just birthday cash, thousands here and there, for a car when he turned 18, for the wedding, for the down payment on that refinance they're trying to do now. Richard told him it was what a father does. But there was always a price. He'd say things like, "Your mom never let me be a man in my own house. Don't let her do the same to you." I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. All those years, I thought Richard had mostly disappeared from Tyler's life. Turns out he'd been there the whole time, planting seeds. Lisa kept going, voice low. "A couple months ago, Richard found out you were still paying the full mortgage. He was furious. Told Tyler it was proof you were trying to keep control, that you'd never let him grow up. He convinced Tyler and Brooke that if they got you out, they could refinance, take over the equity, and finally be free. Richard's even co-signing the loan. He's been promising Tyler a big chunk of his retirement fund once the house is in their name. That's why Tyler changed the lock so fast. It's not just about space, it's about money." I sat there, coffee growing cold, trying to breathe through the betrayal that felt bigger than anything Richard had done 20 years ago. He hadn't just left me, he'd spent years turning my son against me from the shadows, and now my own child was choosing the lie over the truth. "I have proof," Lisa said, sliding her phone across the table. "Texts, bank transfers, even a couple of voice memos Richard sent me last year, bragging about how he was finally getting what was his. He still talks to me sometimes, old habits." I scrolled through the screenshots she showed me. Richard's words were there in black and white, calling me that woman who had trapped him with a kid, talking about the house like it was always supposed to be his, telling Tyler he deserved better than a mother who never moved on. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. "Why are you telling me this now?" she said. "Because I'm sick of the lies, and because I have a daughter with Richard, your son's half-sister. She's 17. She deserves to know the truth too. But mostly, I watched Tyler grow up believing a story that wasn't true. I can't watch him throw you away over it." We talked for almost 2 hours. She told me things I never knew, how Richard had hidden assets during the divorce, how he'd pressured Tyler to keep their relationship secret from me. By the time I left the coffee shop, the rain had stopped, but everything inside me felt soaked and heavy. I drove back to the house, my house, determined to show Tyler the proof. Maybe if he saw the texts with his own eyes, he'd understand. Maybe we could still fix this before the locksmith came on Monday. The lights were on when I pulled up. I grabbed my phone with the screenshots Lisa had forwarded me and walked up the porch steps. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys again. Tyler opened the door before I could knock. His face was tight. "Mom, I told you." "I met with Lisa," I said quickly, cutting him off. "I showed me everything. The money Dad's been giving you, the things he's been saying about me for years. Tyler, he lied to you. I have proof right here." I held out the phone. For a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt, maybe even pain. He took the phone and started scrolling. Brooke appeared behind him, holding Sophie on her hip. The little girl reached for me like she always did. "Nana!" Tyler's expression hardened as he read. When he looked up, his voice was cold. "This is exactly what Dad warned me about. You're still trying to turn me against him, even now. You went behind my back and talked to his wife? Tyler, please." "No." He handed the phone back like it burned him. "Dad said you'd do something like this, that you'd never accept that he left because of you. Brooke and I talked about it. We're moving the timeline up. Locksmith is coming tomorrow morning. You need to be gone by then." Sophie started fussing, reaching for me again. Brooke turned her away gently. "Come on, sweetheart, Nana has to go." I stood there on the porch, the same porch where I'd taken Tyler's first day of school pictures, where I'd hung Christmas lights every year alone after Richard left. My voice cracked. "This is my home. I paid for every brick because I wanted you to have stability. I never told you the ugly parts because I wanted you to love your father. And this is how you repay me?" Tyler's eyes were glassy, but his jaw stayed set. "You made me choose every single day by keeping me in the middle. I'm choosing now, for my family." He closed the door.
I sat on the porch steps for a long time, phone in my lap, staring at the screenshots. The betrayal felt like it was choking me, not just from Richard anymore, from the son I had given everything to protect. But as I finally stood up to walk back to my car, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Lisa. "Elaine, there's more. Richard didn't just give Tyler money. He's been putting the house in Tyler's name behind your back for months. And there's something about Brooke you need to know before tomorrow. She's not who you think she is either. Call me as soon as you can. This is bigger than the divorce." My heart slammed against my ribs. I looked back at the house one last time. The curtains were drawn now, but I could see shadows moving inside. My son, his wife, my granddaughter. The family I thought I had saved.
Whatever Lisa was about to tell me, I had a feeling it was going to burn everything down, and I wasn't sure any of us would survive the fire. I didn't even make it out of the driveway before I called Lisa back. My hands were still wet from the rain, the phone slippery against my ear. The engine was running, but I hadn't put the car in drive yet. I just sat there, staring at the house I'd fought 20 years to keep. She picked up on the first ring. "Elaine?" "Tell me," I said. My voice came out flat, like all the feeling had already been used up. "What about Brooke? What about the house?" Lisa exhaled slowly, the kind of sigh that carries years of regret. "Okay, I'm going to say this straight because you deserve that. Brooke isn't just going along with what Richard's telling Tyler. She's been involved in this longer than you think. She reached out to Richard about 8 months ago, not because she wanted advice on the refinance. She wanted advice on how to get you out of the picture without looking like the bad guy." I closed my eyes. The wipers were still sweeping across the windshield even though the rain had stopped. Why would she do that? "Because she's been seeing someone else," Lisa said quietly. "A guy named Greg from her dental office. It started as late nights at work, then it turned into something more. Richard found out because he was helping Tyler with some family financial review last fall. Instead of telling his son the truth, Richard saw an opportunity. He told Brooke he'd keep her secret if she helped push you out. The house, the equity, the refinance. Richard's been promising them both a clean slate. No more mother-in-law in the basement, no more old baggage, just the three of them starting over with the money from selling this place once it's in their name." My stomach dropped so hard I had to lean forward and rest my forehead on the steering wheel. Brooke, the same woman who used to leave little notes on the fridge thanking me for watching Sophie. The same woman who cried on my shoulder the night her own mother passed away. She had looked me in the eye for 3 years while she was planning to take the only home I had left. "I have screenshots," Lisa continued. "Texts between Brooke and Greg, voice notes she sent him from the guest bathroom while you were upstairs with Sophie, and messages between Brooke and Richard where she calls you the anchor that's dragging them down. Richard even helped her hide some of the credit card charges from the hotel stays. He's been wiring her extra money every month so Tyler wouldn't notice the missing cash." I swallowed hard. "Does Tyler know about the affair?" There was a long pause. "He knows," she said finally. "Richard told me Tyler found out 2 months ago. He came home early one day and saw a text. He confronted Brooke. She cried, said it was a mistake, promised it was over. Tyler chose to believe her because Richard sat him down the next day and laid it all out. Keep the family together, get rid of you, refinance the house, and Richard would make sure they had enough money to move somewhere new and start fresh. Tyler's been going along with it. He told Richard he'd rather have a house and stability for Sophie than blow everything up over one mistake." One mistake. The words sat in my chest like a stone. I had spent 20 years protecting my son from the pain of his father's betrayal, and now he was choosing the exact same kind of lie for the exact same reason: money and the house. Lisa's voice softened. "I'm sending you everything right now. Photos of the transfers, the texts, timestamps that match nights Brooke said she was working late.
You need to see it before the locksmith shows up tomorrow, because there's one more thing. The refinance paperwork? Richard already had Tyler file it with a power of attorney form that lists you as incapacitated due to emotional distress. It's not legal yet, but it's moving fast. They're trying to cut you out before you can fight it. My phone buzzed in my hand as the files started coming through. I opened the first one with shaking fingers. There it was, Brooke's name next to Greg's in a string of messages that made my skin crawl. Can't stop thinking about last night, miss you already, and then a message to Richard. He bought it. Elaine will be gone by the weekend. Thank you for making this easy. I felt sick. Not angry anymore, just sick. Like the last piece of the family I'd tried so hard to hold together had finally crumbled in my hands. I don't know what to do, I whispered into the phone. You fight, or you walk away, but you don't let them rewrite your life the way Richard rewrote yours. I'll testify if it comes to that. I have nothing left to lose with him anymore. We hung up. I sat in the car for another 20 minutes just staring at the screenshots. Every late night Brooke had come home smelling like someone else's cologne. Every time she'd smiled at me over coffee and asked how I was doing. Every time she'd handed Sophie to me and said, "You're the best, Elaine." It had all been an act while she and my ex-husband worked together to push me out. The sun was starting to set when I finally got out of the car and walked back up the porch steps. I didn't knock this time. I just opened the door with my key. The key I still had because they hadn't changed the locks yet. Tyler was in the living room watching TV with Sophie on his lap. Brooke was in the kitchen pouring a glass of wine. They both looked up when I stepped inside. "Mom," Tyler said, voice already tight, "we talked about this. I know what's going on." I held up my phone. All of it. The affair, the deal with your father, the power of attorney. I have every text, every transfer, everything. Brooke's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. Tyler's face went pale, then flushed red. He set Sophie down gently and stood up. "You talked to Lisa again?" he asked. "Yes, and she showed me proof that you already knew about Brooke and Greg. You knew, and you still chose to throw me out so you could keep this house and the money your father is dangling in front of you." Brooke started crying immediately, the same perfect, quiet tears she used whenever she wanted Tyler on her side. "Elaine, it was one time. It's over. Tyler forgave me. Why are you doing this to us?" I looked at my son. "Because I spent 20 years not telling you the ugly truth about your father so you could love him. I paid for this house so you would never feel homeless the way I did when he left. And now you're doing the same thing to me that he did. You're choosing the lie because it's easier than the truth." Tyler's jaw worked back and forth. For a second I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Then the man took over again. "Dad was right," he said quietly. "You never let anything go. You hold on to everything like it's a weapon. Brooke made a mistake. We're fixing our family. You're the one who keeps bringing the past back in." Sophie toddled over and hugged my leg. "Nana, stay?" I knelt down and kissed the top of her head, breathing in the smell of baby shampoo and crayons. My heart felt like it was splitting in two. "I love you, baby girl." Tyler crossed his arms. "You have until tomorrow morning. The locksmith will be here at 9. Dad's coming too to make sure the paperwork is signed. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." I stood up slowly. "I'm not signing anything. This is still my house. I'm calling a lawyer first thing in the morning." Brooke let out a shaky laugh through her tears. "A lawyer? With what money, Elaine? You've been living off us for 3 years. I didn't answer her. I just looked at Tyler one last time. "I hope the house is worth it. I really do." I turned and walked back out to my car. The night air felt colder now. I sat behind the wheel and opened the files Lisa sent again, scrolling through them in the dark. There were dozens, enough to show a judge, enough to maybe stop the refinance. But as I started the engine, my phone lit up with a new text. This one wasn't from Lisa. It was from an unknown number. The message included a single photo attachment. I opened it. It was an ultrasound picture, dated 3 weeks ago. The note below it read, "Tell Tyler the truth, or I will. The baby is Greg's. Richard already knows. He's paying for the prenatal care so Brooke can keep pretending it's Tyler's. They're planning to move before anyone finds out. You have until morning to decide if you want to be the one who destroys your granddaughter's life, or if you'll let them have the house and walk away." My hands went numb. The ultrasound image blurred in front of me. Brooke was pregnant, and it wasn't my son's baby. I looked back at the house. The lights were still on. Sophie's nightlight glowed in her bedroom window. I had until morning, and whatever choice I made now was going to break what was left of this family forever.
I sat in my car until the dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m., the ultrasound photo still glowing on my phone screen like some kind of accusation. The baby wasn't Tyler's. Brooke was carrying another man's child, and my ex-husband was helping her hide it so they could steal my house and start over with clean money and clean lies. I kept zooming in on the tiny white shape on the scan, wondering if Sophie would ever have a little brother or sister who looked nothing like her father, wondering if I could really be the one to drop that bomb on my son's life the same way Lisa had dropped one on mine 20 years ago. My mind kept circling the same question. What kind of grandmother destroys her granddaughter's world to save her own? And what kind of mother stays quiet while her son builds his life on quicksand? I drove to the only place I could think of, the 24-hour diner off the highway where Tyler and I used to go for pancakes after his Little League games. I ordered coffee I didn't drink and sat in a booth scrolling through every screenshot Lisa had sent. By 5 a.m., I had forwarded copies to my own email, to a cheap lawyer I found online, and even to an old friend who used to work in real estate law. I wasn't sure if any of it would hold up, but I couldn't just sit there waiting for the locksmith. At 7:45, I pulled back into the driveway. The house looked the same as it always had, white siding, black shutters, the maple tree Tyler planted when he was 12, now tall enough to shade the porch. Richard's silver SUV was already parked behind Tyler's truck. My stomach turned at the sight of it. I walked up the steps carrying nothing but my phone and the folder I'd printed at the all-night copy place. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. They were all in the kitchen, Tyler at the table with a mug of coffee, Brooke standing by the sink in her robe, eyes red like she'd been crying. Richard leaning against the counter in a golf shirt, looking exactly like the man who had walked out on us 2 decades earlier. Same confident tilt to his chin, same way of acting like he belonged anywhere he stood. Sophie was in her high chair eating Cheerios, oblivious. Tyler saw me first. "Mom, you're early." Richard straightened up. "Elaine, we were hoping you'd make this easy." I set the folder on the table between them. My hands weren't shaking anymore. "I'm not signing anything, and I'm not leaving quietly." Brooke's eyes flicked to the folder. "What is that?" "Everything," I said. I opened it slowly, laying out the screenshots one by one. Brooke's messages to Greg, the hotel charges, the transfers from Richard's account, the power of attorney form they'd tried to file, and at the bottom, the ultrasound photo I'd printed in black and white so it wouldn't look as cruel as it felt. Tyler picked up the ultrasound first. His face went completely still. Brooke made a small sound like she'd been punched. "Where did you get that?" "Someone sent it to me last night with a message that said I had until morning to decide whether to tell Tyler or let you keep the house and walk away." I looked at Richard. "Was that you? Or Greg? Or did you two decide together how to keep your son from finding out he's about to raise another man's baby?" Richard's mouth opened, but nothing came out for once. Tyler's voice was hoarse. "Brooke?" She started crying again, the real kind this time, shoulders shaking. "It was one night, I swear. I was lonely, you were always working, your mom was always here watching us like we couldn't do anything right on our own. Greg was just there. I ended it.
I ended it months ago. The baby is yours, Tyler. I know it is. Tyler looked at the due date on the ultrasound, then at me. His eyes were wet. Mom, you knew about this last night? I found out the same time you're finding out now. I kept my voice steady, even though my chest felt like it was caving in. I sat in my car for hours trying to decide if I should burn everything down or let you keep believing the lie. The same way I let you believe your father left because I was impossible to live with. I'm done protecting you from the truth, Tyler. I've been doing it for 20 years, and it just taught you how to lie to yourself. Richard stepped forward. This is exactly what I told you she'd do, son. She's turning everything around so she can keep the house. She's always been manipulative. Stop. Tyler's voice cracked like it used to when he was little and trying not to cry. He looked at Brooke. Is it true? About Greg?
She nodded, sobbing harder. I was scared. Richard said if we got your mom out, we could start over. He said he'd help with the money. I didn't know how to tell you. Tyler stared at the ultrasound again, then at his father. You knew. You knew she was pregnant with someone else's baby and you still helped her push Mom out so you could get your hands on this house? Richard tried to smile the way he used to when he was closing a big sale. I was protecting your family, Tyler. Your mother has been a weight around your neck since the day I left. I was giving you the freedom I never had. Tyler stood up so fast the chair scraped across the floor. Sophie started to cry. He picked her up and held her tight against his chest, like he was afraid someone would take her too. I want you both out, he said. His voice was shaking but clear. Dad, get out of my house. Brooke, I need you to leave too. Take whatever you need for Sophie and go to your sisters. I can't look at either of you right now. Richard's face changed. The confidence cracked. Tyler, don't be stupid. The refinance is already in motion. If you kick us out now, you lose everything. I don't care. Tyler looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in months. Mom, I'm so sorry. I believed him. I wanted it to be easy. I wanted someone to blame for how hard everything felt. I was wrong. I felt my knees go weak. 20 years of holding it together and I almost fell apart right there in the kitchen I'd cleaned 1,000 times. Brooke was still crying. Tyler, please, the baby. We'll do a test when it's born, he said quietly. Until then, you can stay with your sister. I'll pay for whatever Sophie needs, but I can't do this with you here. Richard tried one more time, voice low and urgent. Son, think about the money. The house is worth almost $400,000 now. Your mother will drag this out in court for years, and you'll lose it all. Tyler looked at his father the way I'd seen him look at strangers on the street. Get out. Richard left first, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Brooke packed a small bag in silence, kissing Sophie's head like it might be the last time. When she was gone, Tyler locked the door behind her and came back to the kitchen. He set Sophie in her high chair and turned to me. His eyes were red. I changed the locks yesterday morning. I was going to give you a key to the basement again. I was going to ask you to stay and help me figure out how to fix this mess I made. But then Dad called and said I had to be strong, and I stepped forward and pulled him into a hug the way I used to when he was 10 and the world felt too big. He buried his face in my shoulder and cried like the little boy I remembered. We stood there for a long time while Sophie played with her Cheerios. Later that afternoon, we sat on the porch together, Sophie napping inside. Tyler told me everything, how Richard had been calling him since he was 14, feeding him pieces of a story that made me the villain, how Brooke's distance had started small and grown until he was scared to ask questions, how the house had started to feel like a cage instead of a home. I thought kicking you out would make me feel like a man, he said. Instead, it made me feel like him. I took his hand. We'll figure out the house. The lawyer I called this morning said the power of attorney they tried to file is worthless. I still own it. We can refinance properly, or we can sell it and split everything fair. Whatever you want. but we do it together. No more secrets." He nodded. "I want Sophie to grow up knowing the truth, all of it, even the ugly parts. I don't want her to ever feel like she has to choose sides the way I did." That evening, I unpacked the suitcase I'd never fully taken out of my car. Tyler ordered pizza, and we ate on the living room floor like we used to when he was small. Sophie fell asleep between us on the couch. I still don't know what will happen with the baby. I still don't know if Tyler and Brooke will find their way back to each other, or if this is the end of their marriage. I don't know if Richard will try to fight us in court, or if he'll finally disappear the way he should have years ago. But I do know this. I spent 20 years protecting my son from pain by hiding the truth, and the moment I stopped hiding it, the moment I let the truth come out, even though it hurt like hell, something shifted. Not everything is fixed, not by a long shot, but for the first time in decades, I'm not carrying the weight of everyone else's secrets alone. I'm 58 years old. I almost lost my home, my son, and the granddaughter who calls me Nana, but I didn't lose myself. And tomorrow morning, when the sun comes up, Tyler and I are going to sit down with coffee and start figuring out what our family looks like now that the lies are finally gone. It won't be easy, but it will be ours. 6 months have passed since that morning in the kitchen when everything finally broke open. I still wake up some nights replaying the sound of Richard slamming the door or the way Sophie reached for me while her mother cried at the sink. But most mornings I wake to the smell of coffee Tyler is already brewing downstairs. And for the first time in 20 years, I don't feel like I'm carrying the weight of everyone else's secrets on my shoulders. We didn't sell the house. The lawyer I called that frantic morning turned out to be worth every penny. He looked at the forged power of attorney papers, the hidden wire transfers, and the mountain of screenshots and told us it was textbook financial manipulation. Richard fought it for 3 weeks. Emails, lawyers, the whole performance, but once the bank saw the evidence, the refinance collapsed. The house stayed in my name. Tyler and I redid the paperwork cleanly. I transferred a fair share of equity to him for Sophie's future. He started paying a reasonable mortgage contribution each month, and we both signed a simple agreement that no one else would ever be added to the deed without both of us agreeing. No more shadows, no more secrets. Richard disappeared again. One last dramatic text to Tyler about how we had chosen manipulation over loyalty, then radio silence. We haven't heard from him since, and honestly, the quiet feels like the greatest gift he ever gave us. Brooke moved out the same week. She stayed with her sister for a while, then got her own small apartment across town. The paternity test confirmed what we already knew. The baby isn't Tyler's. She named him Lucas. Tyler still sees Sophie every single day. He drops her at preschool, picks her up, and brings her here for dinner most nights. He and Brooke have a formal custody agreement now. It's civil on the surface, but the warmth is gone. She apologized to me once in a quiet coffee shop Tyler insisted we all sit down in. She said she was sorry for using me as the excuse for her own unhappiness. I accepted the apology, but I also told her I would never trust her with my granddaughter's heart the same way again. Some bridges burn so completely, there's nothing left to rebuild. Tyler changed more than I ever expected. The anger he carried for so long, the anger I thought was aimed at me, slowly turned into something quieter, regret. He started seeing a therapist, the same one I found for myself after the locksmith day. We go together sometimes on Tuesdays. Last month, he told me he finally understands why I stayed silent all those years about his father's affair. I thought keeping the peace made me strong, he said. Turns out it just made me blind. We cried in the car afterward, the same way we used to when he was little and the world felt too big. The wound is deep, but it's healing. Sophie is 4.5 now. She doesn't understand most of what happened, but she knows Nana's room is upstairs again and that Daddy sleeps in the big bedroom alone. She asks about baby Lucas sometimes, and Tyler answers honestly but gently. He's your brother, but he lives with Mommy right now. She draws pictures of all of us holding hands under a crooked sun and tapes them to the fridge. Every single one makes my chest ache in the best possible way. I started working part-time again, 3 mornings a week at the little bookstore downtown where I used to take Tyler for story hour. The owner is a woman my age who lost her husband too. We drink tea on our breaks and talk about the messiness of grown children. It feels good to have something that's just mine. I even joined a walking group on weekends. Nothing fancy, just a few ladies who meet at the park and complain about our knees while we circle the lake. For the first time since Richard left, I have a life that doesn't revolve entirely around fixing someone else's. There are still hard days. Last week, Tyler found the ultrasound picture I'd saved in a drawer. He sat on the edge of my bed and asked the question I'd been dreading. "Mom, why didn't you just tell me the truth about Dad years ago? Why did you let me believe his version?" I took a long breath and gave him the only answer I have left. "Because I loved you more than I hated him. I thought if I kept the ugliness away from you, you'd never have to feel what I felt. I was wrong. Protecting you from pain just taught you how to run from it. I'm sorry I waited so long to learn that." He hugged me so tight I could feel his heartbeat against my shoulder. "I'm sorry I believed him over you." We sat like that until the sun went down. I still talk to Lisa sometimes. She and Richard are officially divorced. She got remarried last spring to a quiet man who teaches high school history. She sent me a photo of their small backyard wedding, her daughter, Tyler's half-sister, standing beside her, smiling. Lisa told me she finally stopped carrying the guilt of that phone call she made 20 years ago. She said we both made choices that hurt people. The difference is you spent 20 years trying to fix it. I spent 20 years trying to forget it. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's honest, no drama, just 2 women who survived the same man. A couple of nights ago, Tyler and I stayed up late watching old home videos I'd transferred to my laptop years ago. There was one from his 10th birthday, me in the backyard with a lopsided cake, Richard already gone, but Tyler still smiling like the world was safe. Sophie crawled into Tyler's lap and pointed at the screen. "That's Daddy when he was little." Tyler laughed and kissed the top of her head. "Yeah, baby, and that's Nana who made sure I always had cake." I looked at the 2 of them, my son who almost threw me away, my granddaughter who never knew the ugliness until it was already healing, and I realized something I wish I could go back and tell my 38-year-old self standing in that kitchen with the phone on the floor. You don't have to choose between truth and love. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is tell the truth even when it breaks everything apart, because the pieces that survive are the ones that actually belong to you. I'm 58 years old, my house is still mine, my son is learning how to be a better man than his father, my granddaughter calls me Nana and means it with her whole heart, and for the first time in decades, I'm not waiting for the next phone call, the next betrayal, the next person to change the locks. I'm home. And this time, it's because we chose each other, not because I was afraid to let the truth out. If you're watching this and you're holding on to secrets to keep your family together, I hope my story gives you permission to speak. It might hurt like hell, it might feel like the end of everything, but sometimes the end is just the beginning of something real. Thank you for listening to all 5 parts of my story. If it helped even one person feel less alone, then every tear, every slammed door, and every sleepless night was worth it. This is Elaine, signing off for the last time.